Elon Musk, a true American visionary, recently blew the lid off a scandal of epic proportions. Known for his groundbreaking work in electric cars and space travel, Musk has now turned his attention to a different kind of frontier. This wasn't about electric cars or rockets to Mars, but something far more down-to-earth government waste. The kind of waste that affects every single American citizen. Musk exposed billions, yes billions, of our taxpayer dollars being squandered on frivolous projects and inefficient programs. These are funds that could have been used to improve our schools, fix our roads, and provide better health care. The swamp, as we all know, is vast and murky. It's a place where transparency is a foreign concept and accountability is a rare commodity. It thrives on secrecy, on keeping hard-working Americans in the dark while they line their pockets with our hard-earned money. Politicians and bureaucrats operate behind closed doors, making decisions that benefit a select few at the expense of the many. But Musk shone a light on their shady dealings, exposing the truth for all to see. He revealed documents and evidence that laid bare the extent of the corruption and waste. This isn't just about money, folks. It's about trust. Trust in our leaders, trust in our institutions, and trust in the very fabric of our republic. It's about the very principles this country was founded on. Principles like honesty, integrity, and accountability. When our government, the very entity entrusted to protect our interests, is caught red-handed wasting our money, it erodes our faith in the system itself. It makes us question whether our leaders are truly working for us or for their own gain. It's time for a change that starts with each and every one of us. By staying informed, getting involved, and making our voices heard, we can make a difference. Together, we can build a better, more transparent, and accountable government for all Americans. Let's talk specifics. We've all heard the horror stories: $10,000 toilet seats, $1,000 hammers, and studies on the mating habits of exotic insects. These examples might sound absurd, but they are real instances of how taxpayer money is being spent. You might laugh, but this is your money they're playing with. It's not just a matter of a few dollars here and there. It's a systemic issue that affects us all. This is money that could be going towards schools, roads, or back into the pockets of hardworking Americans. Imagine the impact if these funds were redirected to improve our education system, repair our crumbling infrastructure, or provide tax relief to families struggling to make ends meet. Take, for example, the infamous Bridge to Nowhere in Alaska. This project cost taxpayers millions of dollars and resulted in a bridge that led to, well, nowhere. Or how about the countless government-funded studies on the effects of, get this, beer pong on college students? While it might sound like a joke, these studies receive significant funding that could be better spent elsewhere. These are just a few examples of the rampant waste that pervades every level of government. From local municipalities to federal agencies, wasteful spending is a pervasive issue. And it's not just the big-ticket items, it's the little things too. Overpaid bureaucrats, unnecessary travel expenses, lavish office parties. It all adds up. These smaller expenditures might seem insignificant on their own, but collectively, they represent a substantial drain on public resources. Every dollar wasted is a dollar that could have been used to make this country stronger, safer, and more prosperous. By addressing these issues, we can redirect funds to where they are truly needed and create a more efficient and effective government that serves the people. Think about the single mom working 2 jobs to put food on the table. Think about the small business owner struggling to keep their doors open. Every dollar wasted by the government is a dollar taken from their pockets. It's a dollar that could have made a real difference in their lives. This isn't just an abstract economic issue. This is about real people, real families, real struggles. The consequences of government waste are felt in every corner of this country. It's time we start putting the needs of hard-working Americans ahead of the wants of Washington bureaucrats. Now, you might be asking yourself, who's defending this? Who could possibly look at this blatant waste and think, yeah, this seems about right? It's a question that boggles the mind, especially when you see the sheer scale of the waste and inefficiency. Well, look no further than the radical left. These are the folks who believe that more government is always the answer, no matter the problem. They see government intervention as a panacea, a cure-all for every societal ill. They're the ones who champion these wasteful programs, insisting that more spending will somehow solve the issues we face. They push for expansive government programs without considering the long-term consequences or the burden on taxpayers. They believe that government knows best how to spend your money. They argue that bureaucrats and politicians are better suited to make financial decisions for you than you are. It's a paternalistic approach that undermines individual freedom and responsibility. They'll tell you it's about social justice or investing in our future. They use these buzzwords to justify their spending, appealing to our sense of fairness and our desire for a better tomorrow. But these lofty ideals often mask the reality of inefficiency and waste. But let's call it what it really is: socialism. It's a system where the government exerts control over the economy and, by extension, over our lives. It's a system that has failed time and again, yet they continue to push for it. They want to control every aspect of your life, from the food you eat to the car you drive. They believe that central planning can create a utopia, but history has shown us that it leads to inefficiency and loss of personal freedom. They believe that they know better than you do, and they're willing to use the power of the state to enforce their vision, and they're more than happy to spend your money to do it. They see your hard-earned dollars as a resource to be tapped for their grand schemes, regardless of whether those schemes actually benefit you or society as a whole. They talk about taxing the rich, making it sound like only the wealthiest will bear the burden. It's a clever tactic to gain public support, but it's misleading. When they say tax the rich, what they really mean is tax everyone, because eventually they're coming for your paycheck too. No one is safe from their insatiable appetite for revenue. It's a never-ending cycle of taxation and spending, with little regard for the economic consequences or the impact on individual lives. So, the next time you hear about a new government program or a call for higher taxes, remember who's really paying the price. Section 5. Taxation is theft. Plain and simple. Let's be honest with ourselves, folks. When the government takes your money by force without your consent and uses it to fund projects you don't support, what do we call that? Theft. It's as simple as that. Some might call this a radical view, but I say it's just common sense. You work hard for your money. You should have the right to decide how it's spent. The government has no right to take it from you and squander it on transgender animal studies. So I say this to the American people: not one more penny until we get this corruption under control. Not one more penny until we hold these bureaucrats accountable. It's time to take a stand and say enough is enough. Section 6. Reclaiming our hard-earned money, a roadmap. Okay, so we know there's a problem, but what can we do about it? How do we actually go about reducing government waste? It's simpler than you might think. First, we need to start cutting the fat. And I'm not talking about trimming around the edges here. I'm talking about major surgery. We need to identify and eliminate wasteful programs, wasteful agencies, starting with those ridiculous studies and pet projects that have no business being funded by taxpayers. Second, we need to reduce the size and scope of government. That means fewer bureaucrats, fewer regulations, fewer alphabet agencies, and less interference in our lives. The Founding Fathers envisioned a limited government for a reason. It's time we return to those principles. Section 7. Foreign aid. And while we're at it, let's talk about foreign aid. We send billions, and I mean billions of dollars every year to countries all over the world, many of which are openly hostile to America. Meanwhile, our own roads are crumbling, our schools are failing, and our veterans are sleeping on the streets. The world is taking advantage of American taxpayers. It's time we start putting the needs of our own citizens first. We need to prioritize our own people, our own communities, our own country. Let's focus on rebuilding our own infrastructure, supporting our own industries, and taking care of our own people before we start writing blank checks to foreign governments. Section 8. Enough is enough. A call to action. This isn't a partisan issue, folks. This is about common sense. This is about accountability. This is about taking back our country from the swamp creatures who are bleeding us dry. We need to stand up and say enough is enough. We need to demand better from our elected officials. We need to hold them accountable for their actions. Call your congressman. Write to your senator. Make your voice heard. Let them know that we're not going to stand for this any longer. The future of our country is at stake. In conclusion, I find it funny that people in this country are more upset at Elon Musk for uncovering billions of dollars in fraud, waste, and corruption than they are at the corrupt public officials who are committing the fraud. Taxation is theft, plain and simple. When we see our hard-earned money going to idiotic programs all over the world that have no effect on the daily lives of Americans, it pisses us off. Take into account the billions of fraud and waste from USAID and the approximately $1 billion a week from the Treasury Department. Going after the people who are trying to expose the fraud, waste, and corruption is saying you are okay with it and you want it to continue. Me, personally, I believe everyone should stop paying any taxes until the fraud and waste stops. If the government cannot act responsibly with our money, we should cut them off. Tell me, how does $50 million for condoms in Gaza help a single mother in Kansas? How does funding for a transgender puppet show in Peru help fix our roads and bridges? We have a crumbling infrastructure in this country, but we sent millions to Pakistan for gender studies. We need to stop funding idiotic programs that have no benefit to the average American citizen. If Bolivia wants a DEI program, let them fund it. If Ireland wants to do a transgender opera, they can fund it themselves. If someone wants to do a study on transgender blue frogs in Africa, they can start a GoFundMe. Money stolen from the taxpayers should only go to programs that help out American citizens within America's borders. We are over $36 trillion in debt. That is over $300,000 for every taxpayer in America. We spend more paying the interest on our debt than we do on the military. Our government is bankrupt both financially and morally. I am glad we finally have someone going after the corruption and cutting the waste. I support what Elon and Trump are doing. They need to start closing any federal agency that has a state-run equivalent. Fire any federal employee that cannot show the American people why their particular job needs to be done by them and can only be done by them. The fraud needs to stop. The waste needs to stop. The corruption needs to stop. We the people have had enough. We the people are pissed.